It's the only workers that aren't essential, the Working Fans Podcast.
Welcome back, fans and new listeners. This is AJ Strangebrew. We've got my co-host Dave, the biggest wrestling fan I know. And this week we are very privileged to have one of New England's top comics. This man has won Foxwoods Top Comic. He has appeared on E! He's got 2 albums out there, Good Try and Birthday Like a Funeral. And then, of course, he's got a brand new podcast out there, Podophiles, where he literally breaks down with his 2 co-hosts everything that none of us want to talk about. Mr. Pat Oates. Pat, welcome to the show.
Hey, one of the greatest intros of all time. If you could do my eulogy, that'd be awesome.
No, we appreciate you being on here with us. We know you're a very busy guy, so we appreciate it.
I wasn't included one of the biggest wrestling fans, because I, from 45 years, diehard, I every day watch WWE Network. I binge more than Netflix.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that was actually going to be one of our first questions, was if you grew up on wrestling like we did.
Since the network started, after the first couple months of just playing through it and stuff, I decided I was going to binge watch every Raw from 1993 and then the SmackDowns and the pay-per-views, and I'm on 2003 right now. So I've done 10 years. Every night I watch at least 3 or 4 or the pay-per-views, and I just watch it like it's regular. That's what I binge watch. So I grew up on it. It was I used to go locally in New Haven when they come to the Civic Center or the Coliseum there. Sorry, and I watched it every day. Grew up with it and still watch it to this day.
Pat, I wanted to ask you, since you are a wrestling fan, then one of the things I hear a lot of the old-time wrestlers talk about was back in the day when they go to different territories, they may have to change their style of how they performed with that particular audience. Do you ever have to do that in comedy? If you're in a different demographic, have to maybe change the act up a bit?
It's just like the booking territories. I think the performers think they have to do it because they're afraid that if they don't, they won't get booked in the territory. But once you realize it's your talent that's getting you there, then you do your own thing. So when I first started, I was more afraid of, maybe they won't hire me again. So if they tell me to be clean, or say not to say this, don't say that, I want to come back. And then I finally realized, no, I'm the one creating all this. They don't know my act. They're just overthinking things and thinking fans are going to leave, or they're overthinking the room. So after a while, I'm like, screw that. I'm being me. And the crowds would laugh because they're overthinking it. People want to laugh. They're thinking what they think other people want. So it's like, that's not a thought that gets caught in a lot of young comics' heads. But just be yourself. I mean, if someone says, hey, don't swear, and that's their rule, then if you swear, don't take the game. If that's what you do, why would you take it to one show? It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I think that's something that you're supposed to realize. When Hogan decided, I don't need territories, I'm Hulk Hogan. And then he just was Hulk Hogan. Once Vince got in here and did that, he would change who he was unless he wanted to. He wanted to be bad guy, so he did it on his own. No one wanted him to not be the real American, but he did it. Said, screw you, I'm Hollywood Hogan, and just went against the green and became more famous than the heel. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I just compare myself to Hulk Hogan, and that's fine.
I think, like myself, what I have most in common with Hogan at this point is my hairline.
and sagging tits.
Absolutely. I think one of the problems we have in wrestling right now is that people are afraid to be themselves because of the WWE system to a point, and I think that that's what's hurting them and affecting their ratings in wrestling, quite frankly.
Well, I also think it's because no one's showing that they can. I mean, if someone really steps up, I think the people that are wrestling now, the younger kids, are more worried about, and I don't know what you guys are a fan of. I'm not a fan of AEW because I hate the Young Bucks, and I know that's against the grain of things. I like when wrestlers sell, when they care. The Young Bucks are a fucking trapeze act, and they're not saying they're not talented. It's not what I like. But these young kids now are more worried about the cool moves and the things that are on the internet and all that stuff. So when they come up, they're not caring about building a character because they're like, oh, they'll build me one. I have to learn sweet flips. I had to learn how to jump on 12 people if they stand there pretending they're going to catch me. Why would 12 people stand there waiting to catch you? Why are you standing there? What are you looking up at? Run away. A guy's running at you. Like, to me, that's what the problem is. If somebody's going to take the bull by the horns and do that, which, by the way, Adam Cole is doing that. Adam Cole still, they say that flat out. Cole turns to Shawn Michaels and all that and says, I'm doing this. The Undisputed Era is a proof that if you come out there and do what you want to do, they'll let you do it. But it's like Seth Rollins proved he couldn't do it. So they're like, no, bitch, we're going to make him Messiah. But that's it. So I think it really is, once again, it's the talent having to step up and proving to they can prove it. That I can do this. If not, of course the big company machine is going to say, like, well, screw you, we're just going to write this and you're going to get lost in the shuffle because they're not taking those chances. And right now it's harder because there's nowhere else to go. You can't take a chance because if you get fired, where are you going? There's nowhere else to go because there's no money anywhere with COVID and all that. Would
you say that a lot of the young wrestlers, it seems like they're hitting the hot spots, they're hitting their high spots, they're trying to do everything fast, boom, boom, boom. And is that more like mirror society a little bit? Like, okay, even though it's athletically hard, it's the easy way to try to get that cheap pop. And having the patience to build a long story is a dying art, much like people don't want to, everybody wants to binge watch a series now. Nobody wants to, wait a week.
Yeah, it's definitely that, and it's also the evolution of they don't want to be their grandfathers at headlocks and chain wrestling, and they can't be the attitude era when it really wasn't wrestling. Especially all look back, I think it's great. The wrestling itself wasn't that great. It was storylines and madness. I mean, the matches themselves, a lot of times, were just not even really matches. It was just a lot of gaga. Right. And then I think the younger kids watching that were started watching ECW and started watching, I think big influences are young people like Evan Bourne back then and stuff like that, where they're like, well, you're kind of getting over, but they're not doing the weird stuff, and that looks cool, and I'm little, I can do that. I don't want to get with a chair, and I don't want to be this. And I think that's kind of where that came from. But there still are guys, as much as I don't like AEW, MJF is old school. MJF is 1980s heel. Yeah. And guys like that that's the ones you watch. I love Baron Corbin. I'm one of the biggest Baron Corbin fans in the world because he's one of the few guys who actually gets heat, like a Bradshaw and stuff. He's a real heel. You'll never cheer for him. And guys like that are taking those chances. There's few and far between. But yeah, most of them just want highlight reels. They want you to say, that looks cool.
Yeah, we had this talk with somebody the other day where they were putting down Baron Corbin, and I told them flat out, I was like, do you not like Baron Corbin? And they told me, they were like, no, I hate him. I was like, that's his job. You're not supposed to like him.
Give me another heel you hate right now. Nobody can.
Exactly.
The Miz was that for years, and then they because of that TV show, he had to go face a little bit and ruined it. But the Miz was incredible at it.
Yeah.
Even when you started to cheer for him, he made sure you did. Jericho for years was amazing at that. You go, you know what? I'm starting to like it, and he turn around and make you so much better. But right now, Corbin's that guy. He's the only one that can really do that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now, with your style of comedy, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it almost reminds me of the old school promos. Not necessarily the heel promos or that you're doing a promo, but the way you're able to actually communicate your feelings to the crowd and the way you're able to get a connection with them.
And sometimes it comes off like Ultimate Warrior. I don't know where I'm going with it. For some reason. but yeah, I mean, I'm not. The one thing it's funny is I joke about anything on stage. I don't joke about wrestling because I love it too much. And it's the one thing I'm like, I don't want to make fun of it. Like, I love it too much. I make references and I'll say things, but like, you don't. But yeah, to me, when I'm on stage, I'm cutting promos. Right. I'm the Road Warriors. I'm coming out yelling, and I want them to learn catchphrases. It's definitely that old school. Like, I was never a fan of the guys who yelled. I was a fan more of obviously Jake Roberts, where he changed how you do promos. Like when you bring the silence down. That's a thing I learned from a comedian. AJ, I think you know Rodney Norman.
Oh, absolutely.
Hilarious comic. Rodney taught me something when I started. It's called moth to a flame. You quiet yourself. The people in the back are talking. You quiet down. You tell jokes to the people that are paying attention. They're getting the message. Other people in the back that aren't listening will quiet down. They go, what are they looking at? What are they listening to? And that's what Jake Roberts did. He brought it down. He got quiet. You listen to the Undertaker. Knew early on, not Mark Calloway now having feelings and shit. Undertaker, that's the day where you'd be quiet on a fucking ranch talking about it. Fuck you. I don't want to see you cry. You're not supposed to have parents, Mark Calloway. He's the Undertaker. Anyway, so I love that documentary anyway. But it's one of those things where in wrestling, I learned at the beginning I would scream and yell in comedy. It would just get some people. When I learned to sometimes yell and then sometimes bring it down, with a good promo, I would get their attention more.
So almost like a high spot then, essentially. Don't hit them all the time with it. Save it and make it mean more.
Just tell a good story. It doesn't even have to have high spots. Just give me Macho Man's Dragon in fucking WrestleMania 3.
Absolutely.
Just a bunch of false finishes where you think I'm going to be done for a while. You don't know what's happening. But at the end, it's scripted out, but you don't think it is.
Have you ever performed with any wrestlers or know any wrestlers? Because it seems like there's a lot of wrestlers trying to do comedy right now.
No, I did have a wrestling podcast for a little bit with a guy named Erich Moore. And Derek is a comedian who also does wrestling announcing. He worked at the Power Factory for a little bit too. or Monster Factory, Factory for a little bit, and he had a connection with them. And so we were doing a podcast for a little bit. I had already had 3 other podcasts. It just got to be too much. And also, it got weird for me. It started making me watch wrestling not as a fan. And I was like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't want to watch it as an analyst like I do comedy. And it kind of like spoiled my guilty pleasure I love.
Sure.
So, but I love wrestling, but I don't want to. A lot of comics try to do that. I don't know. I don't want a wrestler trying to do comedy. You know, fuck you, Dolph Ziggler. I've seen it. It's not good. I got to see Mick Foley. That was funny, but story. He's not trying to do comedy. I don't know. I would never want to get involved. I just appreciate. I don't even want to know exactly how everything's done. I wish there was more kayfabe. I love the magic of it.
Oh, I miss the kayfabe. To me, that's the whole. When you do wrestling, you know it's good. When you go to the show and you're thinking to yourself, all right, I know how this works, and then you still get sucked into it. To me, that's when wrestling is truly great. When you get caught up in a storyline and it starts to blur the lines of reality for you.
When Ciampa and Gargano started that rivalry, I was like, I love wrestling again as much as I did as a kid.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wasn't loving it. Those two, even though we knew they're friends, even though we know it's fake, for 45 minutes you would forget. You're like, fucking Ciampa won't let this guy win. Ciampa, oh my God, what an asshole. I mean, he's probably one of my favorite wrestlers right now. I just absolutely love Ciampa. But Gargano and him, that was the rivalry you hadn't seen. Like, I was hoping Dean and Owens would be allowed to do that when they came in, and they weren't allowed at the same level when they got to the big time than they were at NXT. But those two doing that, you forgot every time. You didn't care. There's no way they're doing that to each other. They would die if they kept going through that wood and kept doing that move. But no, you just watched it and you just got lost in a great movie. That doesn't happen now. Matches now, it doesn't happen. They're trying, or in an edge, they're trying, but it's not the same.
You know, one thing I noticed too, like with the whole, when everything happened with COVID, when they didn't have any like even wrestlers in the audience, it was very hard for me to watch. And I thought it was.
Do you like it more now though? Because to me, it's phonier now.
Well, see, here's the thing.
They're being paid to cheer.
No, I get where you're going with that too, right? It's definitely orchestrated. I guess I just find as a kid, so UFC has done like no fans in the audience. But when I'm watching an MMA fight, I'm rooting for the contest, the winner. So if I was a kid and I still was like holding on every outcome of this, I'd be like, oh man, I can't wait. But now I kind of watch it more for like, even though I'm a fan still, I'm watching it like for the performance and everything. And I don't know, like when it was just so dead quiet, it took away from it for a little bit for me.
Only a certain amount of people capitalize that. And to me,
yes,
who really shined and showing out, Bayley and Sasha.
Absolutely.
Amazing at that. Bayley would yell at Cole every time he said something. But I'm like, holy shit, she can hear him?
Right.
I never thought about that. And she's like, shut up, Cole. You know, I'm like, how cool is that? And she's wrestling, but she's still mad at Cole. And I think, if anything, it elevated them to the point where they're the best thing on wrestling right now.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I'm not a big fan of the fat guy in fucking Mandy. I'm not a fan
no.
Otis.
Nobody on the planet believes that.
I believe it. That's something you need. That you need an audience for.
Yes.
Right.
That's an audience thing. That shouldn't have. I felt so bad for Drew McIntyre not getting his moment in the sun.
Sure.
And this run is going to be forgotten, and they're going to make a move. I have a feeling Undisputed Era is going to come up and take that belt from him. But I don't think they're going to respect that. I think everyone thinks they're going to respect that. They're going to come take the belt from him and try to get him to chase the whole. He could be like, maybe he's better off chasing someone again than being the guy, because he needed that pop, that, oh my God, you beat Brock, and he didn't get it, and it hurt him. But like right now with no audience, you need good wrestling. Like, that's what you need in the ring, but you need a decent story being told. You can't be over the top, zany, and stupid. Or it's like, but the fucking Street Profits are the worst wrestlers in the history of the world. And they're sitting there and they're cheering for it. They're trying to make an audience that's not there to cheer for them. Like, do you not see there's no one there with red cups?
Right.
Put your cups down. What is smoke? I don't know what smoke is. I don't want it.
There's a few wrestlers like that. You can see where it definitely was like this autopilot and muscle memory where they would play to the crowd, and I caught that more when there was no fans. I'm like, what is he? Oh, that's right. He's used to doing that.
Me and Dave.
I guess I get that, but at the same time, it's like, you should be focusing on this more than ever. Like,
right.
There's a reason why Edge and Orton are getting so much time, because they have to trust guys who can think about what they're going to do.
Sure.
But you don't want to watch them keep wrestling. Edge looks like a fucking bag lady. Like, his eyes are fucking all back out. Like, it doesn't look good. It's like, I mean, Orton always looks amazing no matter what. And these AJ, it's all the older guys. You'd think the younger guys would get a chance to shine a little bit in this, but I don't think they know how.
It's
weird because the indie guys are the ones wrestling in front of no one forever.
Sure.
They should be able to do it.
They even dusted off the Big Show and brought him back from Netflix. I mean, why?
It broke up right when you said it.
Oh, I said they even dusted off the Big Show and brought him back from Netflix.
Yeah, because that's the audience you're going to get.
Oh, God.
Three white men like us who are sitting there watching wrestling are going to run quickly to watch Big Show's family. I was hoping they dust off after that incredible, one of my favorite Stone Cold interviews on there. I was hoping Mark Henry was going to come back and do a little challenge.
Yeah.
He was so incredible in that interview. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I cried a little bit at the beginning. He was incredible in that interview. The story's amazing, and I wanted him to come out and challenge Drew or Braun.
And the thing about
challenge Braun, that would make Braun look so good.
He is a underrated promo guy, I feel. Like, if you go back to that Hall of, like, Pain run, he's absolutely so believable on the mic and terrifying.
When he fooled, everyone can lie. He fooled everyone with that retirement.
Oh, yes.
No one's ever done. Ever since they tried to do it, he fooled everyone. And then when he grabbed Cena, you're like, oh, fuck, man. And it did not add up. The match itself wasn't great, but that build to it was unbelievable. And that just proved how much people wanted to root for him. Because at the end of the day, you still, no matter what, good guy or bad guy, you believe that guy can kill you.
Yeah, I believe he could pop my head off at any time that he really wanted to.
He squished frying pans.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Squished them.
Oh, man. You talk about believability. Him, Brock Lesnar, there are certain guys that you just see, and it just gets rid of all unbelievability.
You know who else is like that? Cesaro.
Absolutely.
He'll never get pushed, so all us fans in the world have to stop asking for it. I mean, he can't talk. He doesn't have the personality. I get that. But, man, I really wish they did something, because every time he's in the ring, he's the guy that I'm like, I think he's really wrestling. I think he's really doing things. He's not. He's obviously not. But he's so strong. When you watch him, you're like, I would rather fight Brock than run away from him. Cesaro scares me at every level. I'm like,
sure.
He's also quick. It's like, the guys like that, you just watch them and you're like, that's a scary human being.
He did the giant swing with Khali. That's absolutely insane.
Which sounds like a porn move. They do the old giant swing with Khali. That works.
Dave's going to go out and rent that later.
Hey, you know what? It's easy to stream everything now. I'll find it.
Man.
I'll just bend you over the Punjabi prison and do that.
Now that sounds like my marriage.
One thing we were going to ask you about, but I guess this kind of goes with wrestling too. Like, we're in a very PC culture right now. Does that create harder obstacles for you to do your comedy, or does that just go back to fuck it? I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me. If they don't want me, then I won't do the gig.
Well, not so much fuck it. I mean, yeah, in a way, fuck it, but the people that are yelling and screaming about everything, PC culture, cancel this, all that. Those people don't go out. They're losers in front of computers. That's the thing. They're the minority. They're a loud minority. When you go to a comedy club, no one is yelling, please don't say words. They're not. They're there for comedy. They want to ticket and they want to laugh. So, a lot of these comics are getting scared and saying, oh, it's PC. Because, you're getting shut down on social media. Well, then don't put that shit on social media. Go on stage, make people come see you, and they're going to laugh at what you do, and if you're funny, they'll support it. But Bill Burr is still putting out hours. Yeah. Chappelle's still putting out hours. No one's stopping. Mark Norman's new special is great, and it's not PC at all. I mean, Jim Jeffries' new thing, he's not holding anything goddamn back. When you're good at it, and you do it, people will pay for it and see it. It's just the people that want attention and likes, but in the audience, the only thing you're supposed to like is the comic. So it actually switches. So that's all it really is, even with wrestling. I think if you go to a ring, if you go to an arena and watch a wrestling match, if you're good again, you're not worried about what they're saying or too much blood. You're just watching the moment, the story. That's it. But at TV, you're like, I can't have my kids see this. Well, okay, then turn it off. You don't have to yell. You don't have to try to get rid of them. You don't have to shut down what they're doing. Just watch something else.
Another question I want to ask you, comparing a little bit to comedy to wrestling here. We've had a lot of trainers on this show, like Al Snow, George South. Ken Anderson, Rudy Gonzalez, though. He was one.
Tom Pritchard.
Yeah. Rudy Gonzalez, though, who trained him and Shawn Michaels helped train Daniel Bryan. We're talking about the greatest love was like actually getting to train people. Like he loved training more than wrestling. Pat, I understand you've done some seminars and trained people, and unfortunately trained AJ too. But not counting AJ, is there a certain love did you get out of training as well? Is it just completely different, or how would you compare training to performing?
Well, it's selfish because I don't believe in. I've said this at the beginning of every comedy school I've taught. I don't believe in comedy class. I don't believe you can't teach someone to be funny. Sure. But if just like wrestling school, there are some people who need to go to a couple of schools, or some people who can just make an extra talk. Some people don't know how to get into something. If you don't have the balls to just go to an open mic, put your name on a list, and try for the first time, and you need that kick, which is take a class, then good. I'm happy that's there. That's what it should be there for, just to open the door to say, all my classes, my book, everything is about how not to fail at open mics, because that's all you should be doing is going there and doing that. But that being said, when I teach comedy classes, or I help someone one-on-one, or I help someone with their act, it makes me feel like I'm going back to the gym, if you will. You know, almost like in Rocky 3, when Rocky has that thing, and Apollo's like, come with me to my gym in L.A., and we go out there, and then you see all the Eye of the Tiger, all these hungry people with passion, and you need to be around that. So when I'm watching young people care about comedy, and wanting to learn it, it makes me go, I need to feel like that, so I have to keep writing, and I'm pushing myself. So constantly being around it is good. So I do it for more of a selfish aspect than anything else. I don't care about them. Obviously, I'm happy AJ quit.
You know, it's funny. This is the second Rocky 3 reference we've had on this podcast. The other one was Danny Moff, who, if you don't know, is a 300-pound Puerto Rican wrestler who's known for brawling and busting people up. I would have not thought the second Rocky 3 reference would be from Pat Oates, but I'm pretty happy it was, though.
I am one of the biggest Rocky fans in the world.
Yes.
Obviously, I have a dispute with one thing. There is no such thing as Rocky 5. That's a myth.
Oh.
It was never made.
Yes.
So if you bring it up, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't happen.
Oh.
I'm equal opportunity. When I go running for my runs every day, I listen to soundtrack music from both White Rocky and Black Rocky. That's how good I am.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Black Rocky is Creed.
Yeah.
and like yourself, I like to believe that they went straight from the Russian killing Apollo to Rocky training his son. To me, that's just the only way to remember it.
Well, what I think happened was, it was like a Jacob's Ladder scenario, where it was just they were dead the whole time. Because why would Rocky help out this guy who ended up getting AIDS in real life and had a weird time? I don't know what that story is. The Go For It song is fine. They could have kept the Go For It song. That's about it.
Oh, man. Hard to follow that one.
How do you not love Rocky if you're a wrestling fan? That's Rocky 3 is what made wrestling mainstream to everyone.
Oh, you know what's funny, too? I want to say this, though, because I do love Rocky. So you're right. I like Rocky and wrestling. But it's funny being a wrestling fan. I was out with this girl a couple of weeks ago. We had dinner, came back to my place. Not that good of a story. We just watched some reality TV shows. But I realized, well, there's some better stuff, but we're not going to include that. There's names. But we're watching the show, and it's funny, like, she's buying into this, and I realize as a wrestling fan, I'm seeing through everything now. I'm like, oh, they did that as, like, a shoot angle. That's not really real, though. That's bullshit. And I had to, like, shut up, because I was ruining this for her.
Everything's a work.
Of course it'll work. What are you, fucking Mark? It'll work.
Everything in life becomes a work kit.
Was she 4? She's never seen this.
We don't have to worry about her age. That wasn't part of this.
I got to tell you, I would love to have a conversation with your co-host Brandon from the Pato Files, because I piss my wife off constantly, because every conspiracy theory she comes up with, I tell her that everything's a work because of wrestling, that somebody's behind everything.
That's what he believes. The world's a work. It's run by like 7 or 8 people. It's crazy. I've been friends with Brandon for most of my comedy career, and he did a little bit of comedy here and there, but mostly was a DJ, but also someone who always got involved in things at a crazy level and following them. And he does not believe going out to eat with him right now is amazing, because he will not wear a mask. He fights with everyone and everything. It's amazing to watch. And he's got a way to have an answer to everything anyone says, and I'm sitting there behind him with a mask and just wanting a burrito. That's it. That's all I want.
Yeah, I told my wife that Beyonce Knowles is actually in charge of everything, and she's furious at me.
I'd like to use her last name.
No.
No one says Knowles anyway. You use government name Beyonce. How dare you?
I was going to go with Beyonce Z, but wait.
Is that your last name?
That one got me a little late. So, one other thing we wanted to ask you about comedy related to, because I watched some of your podcasts, and it was episode 2, and you have the 2 fat kids in the back eating McDonald's.
He's been dying to ask you about this.
Well, I just thought about, like, you were talking about how life sucks. I'm doing play-by-play for this, and I thought that I had to ask, what are some of the strangest jobs or gigs you've gotten in comedy? It's got to be interesting.
The strangest one I ever did was I performed at an adult Jewish day camp. It's in upper state New York. It's kind of like the movie Meatballs, but with just old people, not kids. The youngest person was like 70. And it really was. It was during the day. Me and a comic, Mike Manoia, he was brand new. I was only a couple years in. We got the gig. We went up there. During the day, there's no electricity at all.
Wow.
And they had a siren they would flare to get the people into the main hall, which I don't know if you guys know history, but if you hit a siren and a bunch of Jews go into one room, it's usually a thing. But that's how we had to do the show, but there was no lights or microphones. They lit what they call memorial death candles all across the stage. And then so here I am with my bald head screaming at these Jewish people, trying to get them to laugh at things when I can't do any pop culture, nothing. I pretended that I met Jackie Mason at Yankee Stadium because I thought those are things they liked. I just made up this long story. And they weren't fans, but it was a weird gig. I performed in strip clubs. Like you said, I've had for radio, I've had to be a judge for mothers doing air guitar to win tickets to NSYNC. I had to do that thing. You saw that's not a guy named Ski Man, his podcast. 2 fat people eating the most McDonald's as I did play-by-play. It's been a fun.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad about bringing you to Pistol Pete's anymore. Yeah.
Pistol Pete's is one of the highlights of my whole career.
I'm picturing you up in that camp, though, in upstate New York, with half the audience going, "He's no Henny Youngman. I saw him in the Catskills."
And some of them are like, "Who's Henny Youngman? Is he new Henny Youngman?"
Oh.
The best part of that story was somebody got so mad at me that they got up to leave, but they had a walker. So as they were trying to leave, it was so silent. You hear cuckoo, cuckoo, and they breathe and go, "Boo!"
Oh my God. All right, Pat, we won't keep you any longer. We appreciate you doing the pod with us. You've been absolutely awesome. Please, anything you want to promote, please share with us.
The Podophiles podcast, go to YouTube. It's on Podophiles podcast, the channel there. Also my own channel, Pato's channel. That's where my Pato's podcast is. And my show, POS, which is also on Compound Media. So, yeah, I name every show after myself. But there are all 3 different shows there. Please check all of those out. And I don't know when this is coming out, but I'll be back at the casino at Mohegan Sun, August 5th through 9th. I'll be there for the whole week, opening up for what's his name, Ryan O'Flanagan. So I'll be there the entire week, staying up that way. So if you're around the area, come back out and see some comedy. Wear a mask, but have some fun.
We will definitely stop in for that. Thank you very much for that, Pat. That's awesome. Hopefully we'll see you in August at the show, and thank you for everything, Pat. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'll talk wrestling forever, so thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome to come back anytime and promote anything you want to promote.
Hit me up. I'd love to talk about pay-per-views or whatever. It'd be great.
Aloha, everybody. We're the Von Erichs. I'm Marshall Von Erich. I'm Ross Von Erich. And you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast. It's your fan, Dave. Here today, I got a couple good ones on. They are third-generation wrestlers. They are the grandsons of the legendary Fritz Von Erich and the sons of the legendary Kevin Von Erich. They are also the MLW World Tag Team Champions. Ross and Marshall Von Erich. Guys, how you doing?
Oh, good. What an intro, man. I'm pumped now. Thank you so much. Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're happy to be on the show.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I want to start off in the beginning. When you guys were growing up, how long before you knew, like, what a big deal your family was in Texas? And, you know, going in school, too, was there ever any, like, jealousy from other people? Or was everybody good to you? Like, how was that growing up, being a Von Erich?
You know, some of my earliest memories, this is Ross, by the way, some of my earliest memories of going to the shows with my with my dad. I'd be with my mom in the stands or whatever behind the in the back, and then I just I remember leaving shows and then fans crowding the cars. We'd leave, but it was just normal. I never had anything to really compare it to. And then I went to the same school as my Uncle Kerry, my dad, my uncle, all my uncles, and I had the same third grade teacher. So small town kind of thing. And and it kind of goes both ways. Like everybody knows the name Atkinson. There's affiliated with Von Erich. And, so sometimes, you'll get a ton of favor, and they'll treat you great. And other times, they treat you like, you don't exist or, you're annoying or whatever. Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons. Sometimes that if the teachers, it kind of trained us as adults to try to come off as non-intimidating as possible because, sometimes if people thought we were going to be entitled or snobby when they first met us, because we're both pretty quiet. And so sometimes I can come off as snobby and so we would try our best not to, but yeah, the good old yes ma'am, no, and yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. That goes a long way.
Kill them with kindness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys broke in. I saw that you trained with your dad, obviously, but you also trained with Harley Race. Is that a fact?
That's right. 2012 is when everything started for us. Harley Race had a wrestling academy, and we were both playing football. Wrestling was always a dream of ours, especially younger, because of course we just wanted to be like our dad. Our dad is just a great father, a great role model, and we grew up watching the old world class tapes and stuff, and we'd be wrestling each other the whole time we were watching. Jumping all over the bed. It didn't matter where we were. We'd be Walmart, Home Depot, we're wrestling in line, and so it was just kind of what we were so used to. And then to actually have the opportunity to go and go to a school and really see what we're made of and compare yourself to other guys that have been doing this a long time. It was really, really awesome. So we went to the Harley Race camp, and that's when we got invited to Pro Wrestling Noah. Two scouts were there, and they brought us to Pro Wrestling Noah, or invited us after. And so we didn't really know what we were in for, but I think now Pro Wrestling Noah is one of the best things we could have done for our career. My dad, it was his way of putting us in the fire, and we definitely didn't have anything handed to us over there. It was we started off our first 3 months with just bumps, and it was all about learning to respect the business, and it just gave us a whole new perspective of wrestling, and it was great for us.
In your guys' time in Japan, did you find that to be a more physical style as well?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Japan, is any preconceived notions we thought we had about wrestling, because we're both athletes trying looking to go to further our careers in high school, college athletics, and so any preconceived notions we had about it being like hokey or whatever, American style, whatever. It totally changed in Japan, with the hard hitting and everyone wearing mouthpieces. And our first day there, we went to a show at Kurikan Hall to kind of watch the product, and we were watching these guys put mouthpieces in. Right, what is that all about? And then these guys are just killing each other. I saw one of the guys lose a tooth over an elbow exchange, and we were sitting there after the show. Went over to my dad and like, did you just see that? And he's like, welcome to Japan. And so it was just but it made us closer as brothers. We've always been really close, but it definitely made us closer as brothers. We had to have each other's back no matter what, and we just didn't. In Japan, you got to earn everything, and it's just because you're named, they'll be harder on you if you're third generation, because they don't want to take the easy route, and so it's all about respect over there, and I think. Out of respect, they were harder on us, and it really helped us. Looking back, I'm thankful for, Segura, all the guys that were, rough and tough with us, so, now we look back and we're grateful for it, and we feel like we grew a lot from it. Yeah.
A question specifically from Marshall. Did you start off barefoot, or was that something you decided you wanted to do to honor your dad? How did that come about, and what was the adjustment like?
So I've always been barefoot. I just hate shoes, and I've definitely picked that up from my dad. And it's less weird living in Hawaii, but going into not getting looked down upon for having dirty feet, because I'm always never wearing shoes. But when we went to the Harley Race Academy, my dad was trying to make me buy some wrestling shoes, and I just hated them so much. I was getting blisters, and I was trying to break them in a couple days before we went, and I got to the school. They said, train in whatever you're gonna wrestle in, and I told them I wanted to be barefoot, and that was the best decision for me because also I like to travel light, and so I can just throw my trunks in my back pocket, and I'm ready. I can take my trade wherever I go.
That's awesome. Given, obviously the up and downs of the Von Erich legacy and everything that happened, do you guys feel any pressure right now carrying on the Von Erich legacy? Is that something that, weighs on the back of your mind, or is that something you guys, you're just doing you right now? How does that work?
I would say it's just all about perspective, how you look at it. And I don't mean to sound preachy or anything, but before anything, we're Christians, and we put our God has opened this door in wrestling and everything that's come about, and so we really haven't tried to force anything to happen. We really just let the doors open, because any door I've tried to open has shut in my face, whether it be football, track and field, whatever it be. And then wrestling is the only door that stayed open. And that was a dream of mine when I was a kid, but I kind of let it go because I didn't know, that's a big dream. And I don't know, it was just weird how the wrestling door stayed open. But yeah, at first, being young, I could definitely see just how the wrestling fans looked at my dad in Texas, Israel, and like all these places, how they had such a respect for him, and seeing what my grandfather and my uncles did. And so for us as brothers, we go out there, and as soon as the bell rings, we're going to give it everything that we have due to the blood, sweat, and tears my uncles and our family have done for the name. And so we feel like we wouldn't be doing it justice if we didn't go all out. But we don't look at it as really pressure, really, because God has us here for a reason, and so we really are just we're going through the doors that he opens. But it's just been a magnificent ride with my brother. We get to travel the world, and it's to know that the pressure's not on me. When it's over, God will close the door, and the door hasn't shut. So we're gonna keep on going. We haven't really tried to push anything to happen. All this stuff, MLW, it all just came up. We didn't send them any tapes or anything. It was just one step at a time. And we definitely went through a stagnant part of. We started doing indie shows in the mainland, and we didn't want to go to WWE, so we weren't really sure what we were supposed to do. But the door didn't shut, and so we just we were just trying to stay faithful. Keep, even if there was 12 people in the crowd, go out there and wrestle like it's a main event. Wrestle, just give it all we have, and eventually MLW reached out to us with the perfect plan for us, the perfect situation scenario that we could work with, which was live in Hawaii and wrestle, be a professional wrestler. And a lot of companies wouldn't work with that because living in Hawaii, it's expensive ticket, it's far away. They want us to move, and learning a little bit of what my dad's story. Family is important. Family is everything. That's where we draw a lot of our strength. And so, especially when my dad's in his latter days, we love spending this time all on the same island. We go to each other's houses every day, and it's we're just making the most of it during this time. But it really is it's a beautiful, awesome life. I couldn't be happier. I'm glad God shut the doors that He needed to shut, because if it were up to me, I would have been a car salesman or something. I don't know. I'd been something else.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing. Now, one thing else I want to ask you about before I get into MLW is, two things. One, you got to wrestle with your dad in Israel, I see, which I'm assuming was a really big deal. I want to hear a little bit about that, but also Israel, because for whatever reason, the Von Erichs have been hugely over in Israel. Little insight into that, and then what was it like teaming up with your dad?
Yeah, so in the 80s, Israel only had one TV station that would play, and World Class was on it, and every day it would come on like right at their Shabbat every Saturday at 7:00 is like when they were allowed to like watch TV and relax again or whatever and stuff, and they had just had that one channel. So I think it's the only time in history this is what I heard from some Israelis over there. The only time in history that anything has ever had 100% ratings, and so wow. It was like it was a part of so many people's lives growing up. A part of after Shabbat we watched the Von Erichs. It's just like it was like almost tradition. It was for that for that little period of time, and those people carried it with them. And so now here we are today, and still have a great relationship. And my dad and all of us were lucky enough to get and somebody came up with the idea to one more match for my dad in Israel, and my dad didn't have any plans to have a retirement match. He never did, but he said if he ever did it, it would be either Dallas or Israel. And and my dad didn't know the magnitude of Israel until in the 80s he went down there, and they just heard they had great TV ratings, and so my dad was like, what, the real Israel? They're on Erich fans? Are you serious? And we've always been fans of Israel. And he said that he got there, and there was just the one time that he's gotten weak in his knees from the sea of people. And he said that it was the biggest crowd he's ever seen. And he got out of the plane, and the guards were saying, "This is for you. They're here because of you." And my dad couldn't believe it, and they told him, "Don't look up, don't make eye contact, because they don't want to make any, they don't want to have an uproar in the crowd. If he gets the crowd hot, then there's barricades up." And so as he was walking through the barricades, he waved at like a lady that was yelling for him. And he said as soon as he waved, the barricade started shaking and moving, and he said the ground rumbled. And so the guards picked him up over his shoulder. He thought he was in trouble, and they ran him to the police station. And he said they sat there and watched world class tapes for about 3 or 4 hours till the crowd died down. And that's when he knew that there was something big going on, something special going on in Israel. And it was just unreal. And the fact that we got to go there with my dad and have his retirement match, it was just so many bucket list dream come trues at one time. It was unreal. It really was unreal. I got to sit in there. It was the first time in a long time that 3 Von Erichs were in the same ring, and sitting there learning with my dad. It was like a training session. We were sitting there talking about moves. My dad was, "Hey, well, watch what I do here," and he'd get tag it, so we'd tag him in. And I remember we'd literally be in the corner, and he's giving us advice and telling me what I should do next time I'm tagged in, and tag me, that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of stepping back. I'm like, I'm gonna look back one day and just think this is really surreal. There was one moment in the match where I'm like, this is just a really surreal moment right now. And it was the first time our nieces and nephews ever watched us wrestle live, because we brought the entire family. All 20 of us were there. And so our nieces and nephews, my brother-in-laws, my sisters, everybody was there to see it. And it was just, it was like time stood still. I look over to the left, and my family's in the front row, and I look to my right, and my dad sitting on the apron with me. It was just I couldn't describe it. But there was definitely a lot of speed bumps in the road. My dad had the flu the day of the show. We all had a stomach virus on the plane. It was definitely a test, but I don't know, as soon as that bell rang, my dad, like I was saying, he's a good role model. He like nipped up. He's like, "All right, boys, let's go." And that stranglehold came on, and the place roared. It was just so cool.
That's awesome. I'm glad I asked you guys that. That's a great story, too, with your dad in Israel, too. Wow.
Thank you.
So, I saw the Dark Side of the Ring documentary last year, and, the ending with you guys all hanging out with your dad, I remember thinking personally, I was like, I really love to see these kids get a shot in wrestling. And then I saw MLW, because I've been following them for a while, announced that you would be coming. And I was like, all right. But, man, to me as a fan that watches that product, I don't think they could handle you guys any better. What has it been like working from MLW, and who are some of the people helping you out behind the scenes?
We always knew that the perfect thing we would know it was the perfect thing when we're able to stay here in Hawaii, with our family and stuff, and have a promotion, work with us and, fly us out and do all that kind of stuff. And MLW was, we got offers, to move and, work with other, pretty big companies, and we feel like this MLW came in at just like the perfect time. Court Bauer, that guy, he's one of my favorite guys to work for. He came in, he saw something in us that we didn't really see in ourselves yet. We were just going through the doors that opened, and Court, he said that, he said that he believed in us, and then when he brought us in, I don't know, it was like he knew what was going to happen before it happened. He'd see the future or something. That's what it felt like, because he was telling us how big it was going to be, and he was right. It was just getting bigger and bigger, and it was just him bringing in at that timing right after the Vice thing. He was talking to us before the Vice thing aired and before we even talked to Vice, and so it was just perfect timing, because we finally came up with an agreement of staying in Hawaii and working with them, and then the Vice thing came out right before our debut, and so that timing of that was just unreal. But we really could not be happier with the promotion we're at, and the guys in the locker room we got like a brotherhood in the locker room. These guys, everybody really does love each other. It really is like it really is like a family. I'm sure everybody's pulling for each other. Everybody wants MLW to look good and do well. And there's guys like low key. We've been getting advice from him for years in Japan. We used to sit down with him, have coffee with him, and just pick his brain, because he's one of our favorite wrestlers when we started going to Japan. And it was just cool to see, an American fight with the same ruthless mentality as the Japanese. And you see a lot of the Americans kind of lighten up on the Japanese, and low key would just give it to them, and that's what we respected, and that's what we wanted to do. And so to be able to be in the locker room with low key again was just like unreal for us. And we've made good brotherhoods with a lot of the guys. Harry Smith, Brian Tillman Jr. is one of our good buddies now. Douglas James. There's so many guys in the locker room that it's been surreal. And then we were also good buddies with Tom Lawler before all this. We trained together and we pick his brain. He was giving us a good perspective of just the fighting world, and to bring that into wrestling. And that's what we wanted. We want our style to be just unusual and like a bar fight really. That's what we're going for. And these guys are just awesome to pick their brains and work with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like too is the music they have you come out to. It's very reminiscent of Stranglehold, and
we love that. Yeah, we're stoked for that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then like the way you guys debuted, and fighting with Contra, and there's these brawls, like you said, it looked like a bar fight. I remember the first time you guys were in there with Contra, and I just saw this wild fight happen, and I'm like, well, I texted a buddy of mine. I was like, this is the damnedest thing I've seen in a while. You have to watch this. But
yeah, it was definitely unique. Like after the match, I remember thinking, like, did that go like really well, or did it go terrible? Like we didn't know. We had no kind of feeling of how it went. But we got in the back, and Court was like, welcome to MLW. He was happy with it. I'm like, okay, good. He's happy. We're happy. But yeah, it was definitely a weird match. I feel like for a lot of the fans.
Well, one thing I really liked was the placement. First ever pay-per-view. You guys are going against the Dynasty. You guys are like modern, just classic, old school style baby faces. Real easy to get behind. And then the Dynasty, just absolute shit heels. Nothing really redeemable about them.
Yeah.
And so it's just great. It kind of reminds me of the old school Von Erich Freebirds. And I remember your dad saying, this isn't Texas versus Georgia. This is decency versus filth. And that's kind of what I thought with you guys versus the Dynasty. And I think it says a lot that Court believed in you guys to put you on the very first match of the very first pay-per-view, and you get the straps. What was that all like?
Oh, man. That was like a milestone in our careers. I mean, as soon as we started talking, and it was in Chicago, a place that, we've always dreamed about wrestling in, But before that, I remember going in just being like, or when MLW first reached out to us, we were thinking, one day what a dream it would be to actually get the tag straps, and it came way sooner than we thought, and we were just way sooner. Yeah, and we felt a little, unprepared or whatever, but I just remember the feeling of just total accomplishment and just being that was one of the high points of our career, definitely. And when being in Chicago, not knowing if people were going to know our name or know who we are. That was, that having that question mark, but I just know that, nobody can deny or you can't get behind a guy that did all that he has. And so when we got in there and to hear the Chicago fans behind us, it was just like, we looked at each other and it was this confirmation, all right, let's fight. It was just an amazing feeling. And yeah, to win the belts after, that was, that whole night we were just sitting there, we just look at each other and start laughing. We just couldn't believe it. Like, man, this is insane, and we're still like it's as long as this. I know we're in this quarantine and there's COVID-19 stuff's going on right now, and but the longer we're in quarantine, we haven't got a chance to defend our titles in a while, but it's going to be. I'm afraid we're going to be the longest reigning tag team champions without having to defend our titles.
I mean, I'm glad you guys mentioned Chicago too, because I've never been there, but I will say as an old school wrestling fan, that is an arena whenever WCW or even WWE or ECW went through, I'm like, man, that is just a wild, raucous crowd. They love their wrestling out there.
Yeah, it was. They just appreciate the art of wrestling, and it was just so awesome. And I can't say enough about Court Bauer. He really, to us, we feel like he's like the modern day Paul Heyman. ECW was full of misfits. They had a just problem child, the men in the locker room, and that's kind of what you have at MLW. Guys that have been kicked out of locker rooms for fighting. It's just it's weird how you put it all together and you got this this family and Court Bowers is definitely just a great leader, a great guy to get behind, and he gives us before most of the shows he'll give us a speech and just pump all of us up, and we'll run through a brick wall for this guy. And so it definitely gets everybody ready to go right before the show.
Now, one more question about MLW. Dallas, Texas, intimidation games. What was that like coming back home? I mean, you definitely seemed like you got quite the response.
Well, for us, that meant so much to us because it was about 7 years ago. We were we were young boys in Japan and doing the Japan thing, and then we came to the mainland. It was one of our first shows in Texas, and we were in this little country town in the middle of nowhere. It was Burleson, Texas, or right north of Burleson, and it was just a small country town. And they had a sign that our main event tonight, the Von Erichs, and we were sitting there looking at that sign, and man, these people are coming to see us for the main event of this town tonight. And it wasn't a huge crowd, but that right there changed a lot of things for us, and it made us, it was, maybe that there's someone else behind all this, and it's not just us, and that was a really heavy moment for both of us being the main event. And so for MLW to go to Dallas, it was our first time in Dallas, and to be Von Erichs and see that the MLW believes in us enough to do a show in Dallas was just it was unreal.
Yeah, and you talk about pressure. The greatest amount of pressure is not from people say, oh, you can't accomplish this, or you'll never be able to do that. It's when people believe in you, and especially you're going back to Dallas, and they put you in, a main event kind of style match, and you're like, that is the greatest amount of pressure to us, So as far as our career in MLW, that was our biggest feat. It's easier to have the mindset to want to prove people wrong, but when people believe in you and you want to prove them right, that can be a lot of pressure too. And so that Dallas show was, everybody was pulling for us, and it was definitely a heavy night for both of us. But when that bell rang, I don't know. I know as cheesy as it sounds, I really felt like all my uncles, my grandfather, everybody was watching it, and it just made me so proud to be a Von Erich.
You guys seem like you, like a lot of performers, feed off the crowd. Have you seen any of these empty arena matches? And how challenging, if you haven't been in one, do you imagine it is to work without fans?
Well, we worked some indie shows that were almost like that.
They're borderline.
Borderline. But definitely the crowd helps so much. And I think there's definitely pros and cons from it. Some guys, just from what I've seen, will still act like there's a crowd there when they fire up and things like that. But if there's not a crowd there, I think that we as all of us as wrestling fans can really appreciate the art of wrestling. And I don't think there needs to be as much showboating or anything. I think it's more, this is just a fight, and a classic wrestling match. And so I've enjoyed watching it just because it's just it's unique, it's different. It's just the classic art of wrestling. But the crowd, it definitely has a major factor in it I'd say for everybody, because it's if you have a new move you want to try or something, or you just take that chance and you scream and give a lariat and the crowd's behind you, it really is. It makes you want to do more and want to give the people more. And I definitely I couldn't appreciate the fans, MLW, and just our fans at BE Nation that the support they give us. It really is. It's just having people believe in you. It makes you want to prove them right. Everybody.
What are you guys up to right now during this quarantine? Anything going on? Are you working on anything or?
So we've been
farming. We've been on the Von Erich Ranch. It's about 37 acres, and we're all spread out. It's like a compound, and so we get to be in quarantine all together. So that's been kind of nice, and we got a waterfall that we go to as a family. We'll jump in and spend time together, and it's definitely been. My nieces and nephews are growing up, and they've been going to school, and so it's kind of like time standing still for a little bit. I get to rekindle relationships with my nephews and nieces. I just had a son, and I'm getting to spend all this time with them. So I really am nothing but grateful, and it's been one of the best things that's happened for our family. But my heart goes out to everybody that's lost family members and that are taking this hard. And it's definitely not. It's definitely a serious. It definitely is a serious matter. But as far as the quarantine goes, we're trying to make the most of it, and but we do miss wrestling. I can't wait to get back in that ring. It's all I think about, all I dream about.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, I can relate, like we got it pretty rough over here, but I'm in a pretty good area, but I'm still working. Business is good and podcast is going great. So, I mean, you can take some negatives and you can turn them into positives.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
See, that's all. And it's rare to talk to a guy like you that has a good perspective. That really is. That's refreshing for us to hear. That's so key. That is key. And if you're happy, you're not working a day in your life. And that's really how it is. I mean, we wasted a lot of our career dreading and being nervous and scared before matches, not being able to eat the night before, and wasting those days that we could have sat there and enjoyed it. And so now we, for the past couple of years, we really have just take it moment by moment, hold each other accountable about staying positive and being grateful that this is a door God opened, not us. And so we really are. We try to just constantly keep each other up and encourage. And we have meet and greets that these people paid to come see us. They drove 4 or 5, flew 5 hours to come see us sometimes. And so we had a match in Israel. People flew from Ireland. Someone from Texas came. It was just like it was unreal. The globe. People traveled the globe to come see us, and it's just one big blessing. This whole thing for us. It's been just nothing but fun.
I'm sure it can be very overwhelming at times too, I imagine.
Yeah, man, it can. Sometimes you just gotta sit back and just look at all this, and it's because we're humans, so we're day by day, and circumstances can shake us and be scary and stuff. But if you look at your life like a big highlight video, you see all the good, and I really am happy. My dad definitely had a nuts life, and losing his brothers. And I only have one, but the one brother that I have, we're extremely close. We know the other one's gonna stay before we say it. We know, and my dad had that with five other men. 5 other men were just like him. Now my dad, he kind of sticks out. He's different, but he had 5 other guys that were just like him. And to lose that, it must have been a really heavy burden to bear. And so being able to wrestle and come home and have these road stories, and my dad relate, it's like he has his brothers back. And so we've gotten even closer as a family through all of this, and it's especially Japan, coming back from Japan. And my dad, he said that we left as boys and we came back as men, and it really was like that. We were like brother lions. It was just us versus the world. That's what it felt like when we were in Japan. Because everybody wanted to test you. Everybody wanted to see what you're made of, and so we had to fight our way out. But man, we would do it all over again. Morifuji, Morishima, Ogawa-san, Kobashi-san, all these men sat there, and Goshizaki, Kitaro, Aoki, all these guys, they taught us so much, and they taught us the hard way, and now I'm nothing but grateful.
Before we wrap up, are there any goals you want to get out there for 2020, and anything you want to promote?
So we have Twitter. We both have Twitter. I'm Marshall Von Erich on Twitter, and then Ross Von Erich on Twitter, and we share an Instagram, Ram Von Erich, and that's Ross and Marshall. That's what it stands for. But as far as the goals go, we're just continuing to just go through the doors that open. I know I keep saying that, but that's really what taking it by moment, taking life lightly. But I don't know. I still want to be an astronaut. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but that's definitely a goal.
Wow, man, I love to hear that. That's awesome. Outside the box.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. This was a real treat for me. I do this with two other buddies. We're all kind of like, we're quarantined now a little bit, so we're sending stuff in, and they are definitely jealous that I got this interview. So,
man, we really do appreciate it, and it really was refreshing to hear your perspective on this. Just being positive during this time. It's scary for a lot of people, but to have a joyful conversation in a time like this is refreshing. I really appreciate that, man.
No, absolutely. And yeah, for me personally, I always have I always worked out, but I had a bit of a sweet tooth. And in this time, I've cut out the sweets. I've been better on my diet. It's kind of like I'm home. I'm like, why don't I make some positive changes while I'm here? So it's just.
You're good job. That's the way to be, man. I wish I could say the same. But my sweet tooth is kicked in, and my gym's closed, and it's been a bit of a battle, but that's still refreshing for me to hear.
All right, guys. Well, hey, have a great night. Thank you so much. Well, it's night over here, but thank you so much for doing this. Maybe we'll get to do this again down the road, man.
Hey, brother. Man, it was great talking to you. Appreciate you, bro. God bless.
God bless. Have a good night.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Fans, this is Gary Michael Capetta, and you're listening to the Working Fans Wrestling Podcast.
All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast with Dave here, and today I got a gentleman who's been in the wrestling business for a long time. He's been everywhere. This guy's worked for Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. He's got a book out called Body Slams, Memoirs of a Wrestling Pitchman. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Michael Capetta. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
No problem. Honor to have you on. And, like I was saying, you worked for both Vinces. Just a little quick before that, how did you get to that? Like, you started off working for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation for Vince Sr., but how did you get to that point? How did you break in, and how did you get that gig?
Well, back then, there were no independents. So the WWF was the only organization in the Northeast. So, there was no place to go to break in. You just started, at some of their local shows. And I didn't have any desire to be a ring announcer. I just went one night and they didn't have anybody, and I volunteered. I thought for the night. And then they asked me to come back. It was in the summer, and in the summertime, in Wildwood, New Jersey, which is a vacation resort where WWF had weekly wrestling shows. So they just kept on asking me to come back week after week after week throughout the summer. And that's how I started. It was like, there's no training. I have never had any kind of broadcasting class or anything like that.
So I guess the best things happen on accident sometime, huh?
Yeah, at the end of the summer, I found out that Gorilla Monsoon was actually one of the owners of the territory, and he was the promoter of that part of the territory, and he just asked me if I would continue with him. So I did, and I was working elsewhere. I was teaching school, but at night I'd hop in the car, and just for New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania, and Delaware, I was announcing an average of 3 nights a week a week, because it wasn't just weekends. It was, any night.
Right. Yeah, it was a big territory back then. You were going on the road constantly. It was all about the arena and house shows, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there were high schools and colleges and convention centers and rodeo arena and army base and hockey rinks and theaters, just like all like little places. And I did that part-time for 2 years, and then they had a need for a TV announcer, and they asked me to come in and do that. So I did their TV for 8 years.
Wow. So you worked directly with Gorilla Monsoon for a little while. Now, Gorilla's someone not a lot of people got to work with directly that are still around. How was Gorilla? Like, I've never heard anything but nice things about him.
He was the best. He was the reason that I had any career in pro wrestling. But he was somebody who, unlike other promoters that I had come in contact with, he cared about you as a person. Mm. And we both lived in New Jersey, and he would invite me over. He had a pool table in his basement, and he treated me like a human being. So, over and above being an announcer. So I really appreciated that.
Oh, that does not sound like the bar was set very high for promoters, though. If treating you like a human being was the way to go.
Yeah, that's not asking much, right?
No, not at all. So that was what else I wanted to ask you, because you're also in a unique position. You worked with Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. Compare and contrast for me a little bit, if you could. What are the main differences between those two? In particular, how was Vince Sr.?
He was more quiet, kind of like a dignified kind of guy. He was always well dressed, but he was just as cutthroat in business. He just had other people carry out what he needed to get done. Mm. If you read Bruno Sammartino's first autobiography, he'll tell you about how Senior had blackballed him before he became champion. How he had blackballed him across the country where Bruno wasn't able to work anywhere. And so, they did their little dealings with the state athletic commissions. Every state had a commission. And, but to your face, he was nice. Mm. He was, I remember once I had been doing their TVs for a couple of years. And when we would do the TV, we would tape it. And we would tape it every 3 weeks, and we would tape 3 one-hour shows a week, and they were syndicated and broadcast across the WWF territory. And I think I was either making $40 or $60. Now this was maybe that it wasn't so bad. It was in mid to late 70s, but I thought I deserved more, and I went in and I asked Senior for a raise, and I thought I had the answer to anything he was going to throw at me, about why I should get this raise. And he just simply looked at me and said, I just can't afford it. And I what do you say to that, to this millionaire, who controlled all of, wrestling for the Northeast, such a lucrative territory. But this was, common with the McMahons. They could never tell you that you did a good job. They would never, because I think it was because they didn't want you to get a high opinion of yourself. So that you would go in and ask for a raise. Because Dave, at the end of the night, he had given me the raise that I asked for. He just couldn't. They got that, that higher amount of money. I think it went up to like $75 or something like that. And I got it every 3 weeks after that.
Wow. So, yeah, I've had a few bosses like that back in the day, too. Just keep their self-esteem low, so this way when we give them anything at all, they're appreciative.
That's right.
Yeah. So my producer, Joe, he's been reading your book. He's been getting some stuff to me, and one of the things he wanted me to ask you was that you referred to Vince Jr. a lot as Vinny. And what he picked up on was that you don't come across intimidated by Vince Jr. at all, like a lot of people. And he was curious, how do you view Vince McMahon Jr.?
Well, when I started their TV, he was the commentator. So I was inside the ring, and he was, maybe 10, 12 feet away at a table doing the commentary as the wrestling was going on. And he was, he just wasn't a nice guy. Just even back then he would strut around. Now remember, he was the boss's son.
Right.
So it was before he had created anything. Yeah, I never had a warm and fuzzy relationship with him.
I can see that. I can hear that.
And it's interesting. A few years ago, I read Justin Roberts' book.
Okay.
And it seemed to me like not much had changed.
No, Justin Roberts does not have a lot of nice things to say about them either.
No, but he would say the same kind of things, I never, like I said, I only came in to do my, I announced at the Meadowlands, at the Philadelphia Spectrum, and then the TV, and then these little shows in between. So I didn't travel with anybody, I just stayed at my home base. So I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with them, like on the road or anything, so there was no opportunity for anyone to say anything or do anything to me, outside of the arena, because I would just go home every night. But Justin had that that experience, and it comes across as a bit like a bullying kind of experience.
Oh, yeah. As a fan, too, you hear the stories. Jim Ross has talked about it, who seems like he had a good relationship, well, an off and on relationship, maybe a complicated one. But there's no doubt there was bullying. You hear about that and what people are saying.
Anyone that goes to the network and sees my work on All-Star Wrestling, or if you go back, anyone that has any tape on any WWF broadcast that I did, you will notice that in the 8 years that I did their TV, I was with them 11 years total, but 8 years on TV, he never once mentions my name, ever. It's just this blank announcer. Let's go to the announcer. Or, Jimmy Snuka just attacked that announcer.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much how he treated me, like as we cross paths. Yeah, he might, if we sort of like walked by each other, he might acknowledge me, he might not. He was just an idiot. So I don't think I don't think that's changed much.
I love your honesty, Gary. Well, I will ask you about another promoter. You went to work for, I believe, Pro Wrestling USA, but I don't think it was that easy. I think you had to win over a Gary Juster at the time. Is that right? And how did that all come about?
Yeah, that is correct. When I finished up with WWF, McMahon had already begun expanding into other parts of the country, little by little, and he was taking up talent, like taking a Hogan from the AWA, and he was just taking talent from different organizations. So Jim Crockett and Vern Gagne, so the NWA AWA, decided to get together. They formed the group Pro Wrestling USA, came into the Northeast, and when Vinny went national, a lot of the local promoters, Vinny took over the promoting of everything. So all his local contacts in his towns were out of work. So because they had deep roots in the communities as far as promoting the shows, Gary Juster, who represented Pro Wrestling USA, teamed up with them, and so they were to get an announcer, to be the ring announcer for each of their shows. And every one of them called me and, said, Gary, would you come in? So I said, sure. So when Pro Wrestling USA learned that they had gotten Gary Michael Capetta, the Pro Wrestling USA people said, nope, he can't be the announcer. And the reason is, and I understood it, it was that I was so closely identified with the WWF that they wanted a fresh look. And so one by one, every promoter called me and canceled, except for one.
Wow.
And I went out that night. I think it was to Brooklyn, and when Gary Juster walked in and he saw me, I could tell like his face just fell. And but by the end of the night, I had won him over. He saw my interaction with the fans. I think we went out for something to eat, just he and I afterwards. and he saw that I'd be more of a help than a hindrance. And yeah, so then I started working for Vern Gagne and Jim Crockett.
Sounds like a lesson to be learned there. Just, no matter what the situation, work hard, give your best, and good things can happen.
Yeah, just persevere, like just don't take no for an answer. The guys that canceled me, they would, they would apologize. Oh, Gary, I'm really sorry, but so it is what it is, and you just go ahead and do what you think is best and what's right. And when I look back at some of the decisions that I've made over the decades that I've been in pro wrestling, even those that turned out to be decisions I shouldn't have made, you always have to put yourself back in the situation. And probably in doing that, I would have made the same decisions. Because, you have certain alternatives, you have certain options, the climate is what it is, and you evaluate it. You're not always right, but who is,
Absolutely. Eventually, you went to WCW. You got part of WCW. How did that come about? Was that just an extension of Pro Wrestling USA, or how did that work out?
No, that came. Well, I had already been announcing for the NWA at their monthly shows in Baltimore, and then eventually in Philadelphia, and then when the two groups teamed together at the Meadowlands. So Jim Crockett knew my work, and then he started bringing me in to do Clash of Champions, which were midweek TBS specials to promote their upcoming pay-per-views. And then he brought me into pay-per-views, and then I started doing AWA pay-per-views. And when Turner Broadcasting bought Jim Crockett's NWA, that was in 1988. I think it was like the first week of either October, November. And that December, I did an AWA pay-per-view. It was Super Clash in Chicago. And Jim Hurd, who was the guy in charge of WCW at the time, sent word to me that I was not to do their pay-per-views anymore because I should be exclusively to WCW. And I sent word back to him, forget it. If you expect me to sit home when I have an opportunity and you're not going to pay me for that night, there's no way I'm going to sit home. Like, you don't owe me. Right. So put me under contract, and then you'll have me exclusively. And that's what he did.
Sidebar, actually, I didn't have this written down, but you mentioned Chicago for that pay-per-view, and I've been talking about this recently. Is that not just one of the best wrestling crowds there is? They always seem enthusiastic, no matter what the product or where, what they're bringing.
Yeah. Chicago is a terrific wrestling town, and I connected well with the fan base there. A few years ago, when I decided to bring my stage show to Chicago, we had a nice turnout. Yeah, Chicago's been one of my top cities.
Now, how did you get the nickname "the most dangerous ring announcer"? I heard Jim Ross refer to you as that.
I believe, and there's a little controversy about who this was, but I believe it was Jim Cornette one night who referred to me as the world's most dangerous announcer, which was kind of funny because I come across as being so conservative and harmless, which was based on the world's most dangerous wrestler, which was Dick the Bruiser. And also, David Letterman had the world's most dangerous band. And that came from Dick the Bruiser because David Letterman grew up in Indianapolis and was a wrestling fan. So it was just one thing that I believe it was Jim Cornette threw out there, and it just stuck.
That's awesome. Now, one particular WCW moment I got to ask you about, because this just doesn't happen in most people's lives. You were on the tour in Germany where Mick Foley handed you his ear? Is that correct?
No, well, he didn't. It was tossed to me.
Okay.
His ears had been just hanging off the side of his head for months.
Oh, no.
And it was from a spot that he did where he'd be propelled into the ropes, put his head between the top and the center rope, and then spin himself over the top, and he'd be hanging there with the ropes around his neck. and then the referee would do his best to open the ropes, and Mick's head would slip through. And every night, little by little, his ears kept on getting nicked. And so in Germany, it was the ropes were tighter. The referee was a French referee who didn't speak English and didn't know the spot and didn't know how to help Mick get out of the twist of the ropes. And so it really, the one ear really tore. And when Mick got back into the ring, he was wrestling Vader. The ear just dropped off, and the referee picked it up and tossed it to me, and kept on yelling, "Ambulance, ambulance!" And I don't speak French, but I got that.
Right.
So I put the ear in my hand and went backstage, and Ric Flair was in charge that night. He was the agent on the road in Germany, and it was very dark. It was a sportshalle in Germany, and it was very dark back there. So he couldn't see my hand, and he just wanted to know what I was doing back there. I should have been at ringside. And I said, Rick, I've got Mick's ear in my hand. And he said, what? I said, I've got Mick's ear in my hand. Like, we need to find ice. I need to, put it on ice. He said, are you feeling all right? And I took him by the arm, and I pulled him over to a more, like a lighted area, and I showed him. And he just looked at me. He said, holy shit.
Right.
He said, that's a human ear. I said, yeah. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So I had to go find a doctor and get the ear put on ice, but they were never able to reattach it.
Oh, my goodness. I just imagine there's just nothing but kind of adrenaline taking over at that point. You're like, okay, I have this ear. I have to go take care of this. But
yeah, you're right. Because, like, if someone were to walk in here now and say, here, I have someone's nose, would you hold it?
Right.
I tell them, what are you, out of your mind?
Right.
But, yeah, you're right. I mean, you do what you have to do under certain circumstances, things you'd never, ever think of doing.
Yeah, there's no training for that.
No.
Now, I got to ask you this, too. Joe had mentioned this. Like I said, he's been reading your book. He loves it so far. He's in the middle of it. He told me, and I got to think, okay, so to put this in perspective, if you're a guy like John Cena or Hulk Hogan, you probably expect to have a stalker. That could happen. I'm guessing you didn't, but you have a stalker apparently at one point here.
You know what I'm thinking when you're saying that your friend is in the middle of the book?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to ruin the end of the book for him because I didn't die at the end. Yeah, I did. Back in the early days, way before internet, they had fan clubs for wrestlers. And there was every year, I think it was in St. Louis, but I'm not sure. I never went to it. But they would have a convention. And all the presidents from the fan clubs would meet. And I have no idea what they did out there. But they would vote for, like, the best newsletter, the best whatever. So this woman came up to me at one point, and she asked if she could start a fan club for me. And I said, no. I felt really uncomfortable with that because it was kind of presumptuous. She said, well, why not? I said, because no one would join. So, but she would come up to me, over months. And finally I gave in, and I said, okay. And as it turned out, she put out the best newsletter, we would win Newsletter of the Year several years in a row, and she kept on enlisting fans. It kept on growing and growing and growing. And then a couple things happened which were warning signs. One was people started coming up to me and congratulating me for my recent engagement. And I said, I'm not engaged to anybody. And she was telling everyone that we were engaged to be married. And then some of the women would come up to me, and I started hearing they would have the same story, similar stories, where they were starting to get harassing phone calls from this unknown person. And as it turns out, it was her. And so when I put it together, I just said to her, I want nothing more to do with you, so someone else took over the club. So then every time that I would announce after that, she would show up, she would get a front row seat. She was dressed in black. She had like a black hat and black netting, like she was in mourning. Oh, my God. And she wouldn't watch the matches. She would stare at me the entire time. And it was freaky. It was dangerous. It was freaky.
Yeah.
One night, I had a show in Asbury Park Convention Hall in New Jersey, and that wasn't too far from where I was living. And when I pulled onto the street where I lived, I saw some commotion up ahead. And when I got closer to my house, there was a bonfire that had been lit. A fire had been lit on the front lawn of my house. Mm. And I pulled over to the side and I started stomping it out. And they were all like Gary Michael Capetta pictures and Gary Michael Capetta memorabilia. And I wasn't there when it happened, when it started, but I believe that she did that. And then she died young, and I come to find out that when she passed away and they went into her living quarters, she had my pictures all over the walls.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a shrine.
Yeah.
It was dangerous. It was freaky.
Wow. Yeah, that's you definitely worked under some. Those were not safe work conditions, Gary. I don't think that was having somebody in mourning too, like dressed in front of you, just staring at you probably at the whole time of the show. I can't imagine
everybody was cheering, at the action and what was going on in the ring.
Yeah.
And she was almost like motionless, except for her head. Her head would move.
Cool.
When I would get in the ring, her gaze, her eyes just kept following me.
Oh. Well, on a lighter note about your book, one other thing Joe wanted to ask me about was he really liked the way it was formatted. He liked the fact that under each chapter you had a list of the topics and some quotes about it. Was there a particular strategy to that, or how did that come about?
No, not necessarily strategy. It was just a stylistic choice of quotes from people outside of wrestling that applied to the chapter that you're about to read. Yeah, when I left WCW, I never intended to write a book. But it was very difficult after being on the road and then just stopping cold turkey. It was really difficult. So I just started to write some memories down, and then I just kept on writing and writing. It was like a therapeutic exercise, and I wrote for 2 years. And I would write and edit, and I loved it. I loved the life of writing. Didn't go back to teaching. I didn't do any announcing. I just wrote, and had a good time with it.
That's awesome. Now, how did you leave WCW? Was it just mutual? What happened there? I don't remember hearing about it.
How did I missed the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. What happened was your exit with WCW? How did that come about?
Oh, I think it was pretty much that Eric Bischoff didn't see the value of my work and thought that I was overpaid on top of it. I was offered an opportunity to stay and to work part-time in the office and then continue with my announcing duties, for which I would have had to move to Atlanta. And I had no interest in working in the office. I had no interest in moving to Atlanta.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I mean, that's what I would conclude, because why else would you not renew someone's contract if you didn't see their value, or, I have no idea why. I knew that the money was part of it, because when they offered working part-time in the office, I was trying to justify the amount of my contract.
So, yeah, you had no intention, you were saying, of being a ring announcer. So one of the questions I was going to ask you, did you ever have any interaction with Howard Finkel, who just passed away?
Somewhat. It's unusual for there to be two main announcers at the same event at the same time. I mean, there's just no need for two of us to be there. But since he also worked in the office, in the WWF office, from time to time he would come to events where I was ring announcing, and he was a very nice man, very, very nice man.
Obviously, you had your own style. You got into this. Did you ever look at other ring announcers, whether it be like Howard, whether it be like, boxing or MMA announcers like the Buffers? Did you ever borrow anything? Did you ever look at something and go, oh, I like the way they do that, and maybe try to incorporate something we wouldn't notice as fans, but maybe something you picked up on?
Yes, but probably not announcers that you would be familiar with, because that happened when, I started announcing in 1974. So I would look at Jimmy Lennon Sr.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought he was classy. There was not Smiling Sam Mason. He was the other one. Friendly Bob Freed, who was kind of goofy and mispronounced a lot of words. And I liked him because he was real. So, like a combination of a couple. Because when you have no training, and you get into the ring, you're going to parrot what you liked when you were watching from the fifth row, which is why it can be terrific or dangerous as to what WWE does, because everybody copies what they do. So when they do something that I'm not a fan of, I'm saying, oh no, because it's going to take decades to reverse the impact of of what they're doing.
And we're in a generation too where a lot of that happens. Like if people see something crazy on a YouTube video, people want to copy it, people want to imitate, they want to do it.
And I would say to young announcers out there, you can incorporate a sense that you like. For instance, I said I liked the one guy because he was a little goofy, and the other guy because he was just the opposite. He was like very proper. But to say the same words in the same way as another announcer is no way to distinguish yourself. I don't even know what the whole phrase is, but the phrase that Paul Heyman uses for Lesnar, he's the undisputed, the whatever.
Yep.
I mean, every independent wrestling show that I go to, I hear that phrase. And it's like, well, I hear that, and I don't think of you, Mr. Up-and-Coming Announcer, or Miss Up-and-Coming Announcer. I think of the guy that originated it.
Right.
So if you want to create your own person, you need to be your own person.
Yeah, I think Ric Flair had a story about how he used to idolize Dusty Rhodes, and he wanted to be like, I think it was Rambling Randy Rhodes or something, and Dusty told him, no, you figure out who you are. You be Ric Flair.
Right. I mean, every performer, it doesn't matter whether you're a wrestler or you're a comedian or a singer, you grew up idolizing certain people, and you pattern somewhat of your style from them, but you don't become them.
Right. Have you watched any of these Dark Side of the Ring documentaries?
I have, yep.
Just curious to get your thoughts on some of these. Did you watch the one with David Schultz the other night?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was very interesting to me, because that definitely puts an interesting light on Vince, too.
Yeah, what I found most interesting about it was that David Schultz came across as being like common sense kind of guy, and John Stossel was a jerk.
Yes.
Like my ear stopped ringing a little bit more when I got my payoff.
I'm so with you on this, Gary, because, right, if you just tell somebody this guy slapped this guy in the face, you don't expect to watch that show and go, I'm sympathetic towards the guy who hit the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, through the whole thing, I thought David Schultz came across as being very reasonable.
Yeah, and I honestly, me and a couple friends that watch wrestling were talking about this. I kind of believe him. I just believe that Vince probably told him to act a certain way and handle it, and David's never changed the story on anything I've ever seen, and it just makes sense. And if you listen to Cornette and all those guys, they just knew it was a bad idea to have Stossel even there. So it kind of makes me wonder, how did this even happen to begin with?
Well, probably because Vinny wanted, he wanted to mainstream wrestling.
Right.
So the more exposure wrestling got on mainstream programming, the better it would be. I mean, Vinny himself went on Larry King Live back in the day. He went on Donahue, during his steroid trial. So he wasn't hiding from other media. He was trying to spread the word of the WWF in non-wrestling kind of forums.
One other thing about Vince. Did you have an opinion, or you thought about when he was on the advisory board for Donald Trump? There, he's supposed to help get the economy back.
An opinion about it? Well, I mean, that's they go way back. I mean, their politics, their lifestyles, are aligned, with each other. So, I mean, his wife was a cabinet member.
Right.
She ran for Senate a couple times on the Republican ticket. So, no, I mean, it was no big surprise.
You've been in the business for a while. What would be some of the best advice you ever got in the business for your career?
I didn't get a whole lot of advice, to tell you the truth. I just made my own path, used common sense, did what I thought was right, even though it cost me money a few times. Yeah, I mean, there was no. Actually, Gorilla Monsoon was the first to treat me as, like I said before, as a human being. The Grand Wizard back then, Ernie Roth, he was a manager in the WWF. He also talked to me like an individual. At the end of my WCW years, Gordon Soley was, there would be times when I'd get frustrated with management, and Gordon Soley would talk me down, But as far as like a kernel of like truth, there wasn't anything in particular that anyone ever gave me any words to live by.
Now, you said before, a stage show you were doing. What was that experience like, and do you have any plans to do any more?
This was something that I had developed all the way back in 2002, before there were anyone was going around doing Q&As or those kind of standalone wrestling personality shows. It was pretty much telling stories from the book and beyond, which is why I called it Body Slams and Beyond. Not everyone's going to pick up the book and read it. Not everybody learns the same way. Some people just like to have stories told to them. So it was a way for me to communicate some of the stories and some of the information that's in the book. As I'm telling the stories overhead on giant screen video, you're seeing some of the incidents. For instance, you mentioned the night Mick Foley lost his ear. As I'm telling you about that incident, you're seeing the match in which he lost his ear in Germany, which was, it was not like formally televised, but it was picked up by a wrestling fan at ringside on his camcorder. So, there are different things. Like I tell a story about being on the road with The Undertaker. So it was a week-long tour in the Midwest. And as I'm telling you the story, you're seeing our route, from city to city, state to state, with some, pictures of him at the time. Same thing with Steve Austin, where we traveled through the night. And the end was we were to wind up in Houston, and he was going to team up with his brother, and we were supposed to meet his brother at a strip club in Houston, and we couldn't find the club. So as I'm telling the story, you're seeing pictures of what I'm talking about, of the area and things like that. So it's and then it's a 2-hour show with a 15-minute intermission, and then at the end of the show, I'll take questions from the audience.
Gary, is there anything you want to promote? Your book? You want to talk about your book a little bit? The floor is yours.
I think right now I'm Gary Capetta on Twitter, at Gary Capetta, and on Facebook, it's my initials, GMC, the number 4, real, GMC for real. And on my Facebook, GMC for real, on the left-hand column, if you click fan subscriptions, you can be a GMC patron, and I make posts that are not visible to the general public, only to the people that subscribe. So if you want to be a Gary Michael Capetta subscriber or patron, then you go to Facebook, GMC for real. And with the quarantine, there's nothing live coming up that's scheduled, so I have nothing like that to promote.
Well, Gary, this was a pleasure. You're a great storyteller, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I thank your buddy for reading the book. Yeah. And hopefully when he's done, he's not going to lend it to you. He's going to make you go out and buy it.
Don't worry. Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Because of the quarantine, this will probably go out in 2 weeks, but I'll let you know. We'll tweet it out, and I'll message you. And this was an absolute pleasure, my man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, let me know, and I'll send me the link to it, and I'll post it on my outlets.
Awesome. I appreciate it very much, Gary. Again, thank you so much. Great storyteller. This was fun.
You're welcome, Dave. Nice meeting you. Take care.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.